he married the Hokage's wife? Please subscribe. Episode 11. Ye Chen's sudden outburst of terrifying speed made all the surrounding onlookers stunned. Immediately afterwards, he was attracted by the arc that appeared on Ye Chen's body when he moved. Looking closely, Ye Chen, who was bubbling with lightning at this moment, had already arrived behind Chimu Shuamao, and his knife was slashing at Chimu Shuamao's back. However, his knife failed to succeed, and he saw that the short knife behind Chimu Shuamao's right hand was drawn halfway, and the blade pulled out just blocked the path of Ye Chen's knife. Chimu Shuamao just pulled out the knife at random, and he diffused his attack, allowing Ye Chen to understand that the other party's attainment in the sword technique was indeed extraordinary. And Ye Chen's invincible speed, Chimu Shuamao seems to have adapted in one round? What Ye Chen didn't know was that the current Chimu Shuamao was also extremely shocked. If he could still see the clues of Ye Chen's sword technique, but this speed was really the only thing he had seen in his life. It seemed that he easily diffused Ye Chen's attack, and Chimu Shuamao still said in surprise. Thor armor. This lightning-like movement method made Chimu Shuamao think of the 3 generations of thunder shadows he had fought against. When the other party moved, there was no lightning similar to Ye Chen's on his body. He was able to diffuse this knife. In fact, it was more dependent on his combat experience. After all, he had been with the 3rd generation of Laying Professor Gua. Even if his eyes could not capture a trace of Ye Chen's trajectory, he was still able to block this knife. However, this move similar to Thor's armor made Chimu Shuamao completely put away his contempt. Right now, Ye Chen's speed alone is completely enough to threaten the elite upper patients. Maybe he didn't lie before, he really killed an elite upper ninja. The ninjas watching the play around now all swallowed their saliva. As the main combatants who have been running on the front line all year round, they are naturally not comparable to the little ghosts of the ninja school, and they can see Ye Chen's strength with just one move. This Ye Chen is really not blowing, it is already the fastest in Konoha in terms of speed alone. I don't think Lord Pu Mao may have this speed. If his sword technique is also as rumored, then this Ye Chen will probably become another high-end combat power of Konoha. I look at the knife technique, he should not be Lord Pu Mao's opponent. You see how easy Lord Pu Mao's knife is. There was a lot of chatter outside the venue, but Ye Chen and Pu Mao in the duel fell silent. Ye Chen was really thinking about how to win this head-to-head pick, and Chimu Shuamao wanted to wait for Ye Chen to strike first, and then see what whole cards Ye Chen had. In addition, Ye Chen accelerated the frequency of his attacks, this time a little faster than when he fought against the elite Shangnan. Chimu Shuamao is also worthy of being a shadow-level powerhouse. Although his speed is not as good as Ye Chen, he still prevents every knife. His defensive method also made Ye Chen very uncomfortable. He did not block directly, but every time before Ye Chen's knife attacked, it seemed that he could always find the key node of Ye Chen's attack, and cut off Ye Chen's attack with this. Is this the Chimu flow sword technique? It's really a bit of Dugu Jiujian. While attacking, Ye Chen did not forget to praise in his heart. Although Chimu Shuamao's sword technique is good, it can't hurt him. Since he knows that the other party is going to strike later, he simply raises the frequency of attacks to the highest. Sure enough, this time even Chimu Shuamao was a little difficult to parry, and for a while he could only passively parry, and he could no longer cut off Ye Chen's attack. The battle between the two made all the ninjas on the side look at each other. Only because Ye Chen's speed was too fast, they only caught Ye Chen on the left in the last second, but in the blink of an eye, Ye Chen was already behind Pu Mao. At this speed, no one in the entire ninja world should be able to match him, right? Master Pu Mao is really strong, and he has not been cut once. How to say that Lord Pu Mao is also a shadow level, then Ye Chen is just very tolerant. If his realm is improved a little, it is estimated that it will be a different scene. Judging from Lord Lei's evaluation, this Ye Chen does have a sword technique that is not inferior to Lord Pu Mao. However, Ye Chen was a little proud too early. The previous Chimu Shuamao was just to see Ye Chen's knife technique, so he didn't take the initiative to attack. Suddenly, Chimu Shuamao, who had been passively blocking, a layer of thunder chakra appeared from the short knife in his hand, and then just slashed down, and knocked Ye Chen more than 10 meters away. Looking at Ye Chen who flew out, Chimu Shuamao praised without hesitation. The knife technique is good, but unfortunately the strength is still poor. If your realm can be raised another level, maybe we can fight on an equal footing. Ye Chen also stood up from the new at this moment, looking at Chimu Shuamao's face became a lot solemn. Both sides are ninja art streams, but they are known for their speed, and Chimu Shuamao is not only amazingly fast, but even his strength and endurance are far beyond Ye Chen, and the casual sword before has already made Ye Chen difficult to parry. It's a pity that Ye Chen hasn't had time to improve his strength, otherwise relying on Carp's physical experience, he has the confidence to compete with the current Chimu Shuamao in a very short time. At this moment, Ye Chen felt that there seemed to be something on his face, and he wiped it casually only to find that it was blood, and his face actually cut a wound in the previous knife. You must know that he has an elemental body, even if he does not take the initiative to use it, any physical blow should have no effect. Suddenly, Ye Chen looked at Chimu Shuamao's short knife, and saw that there was a faint layer of thunder chakra on it. Although the thunder fruit is theoretically only afraid of rubber, but it is also thunder, can thunder also attack my body? This discovery undoubtedly made Ye Chen a little lucky. Fortunately he discovered this during the duel, otherwise he was attacked by someone with thunder during the battle, and he didn't know how to die. After Chimu Shuamao finished speaking, he no longer kept his hand, and he let Ye Chen press and fight for a long time before, and he also had a bit of anger. It's my turn to attack. Chimu Shuamao's words made Ye Chen cheer up again. He knew that his strength was not as good as the other party, and even the other party's sword technique had touched the level of slashing, otherwise the previous sword would definitely not be able to cut Ye Chen, who had already blocked, out of the wound. When Chimu Shuamao rushed over, Ye Chen also greeted him without showing weakness. Attack instead of defense, and use the speed advantage to the extreme. This is the best way that Ye Chen thinks. The figures of these two seem to have completely disappeared in the eyes of outsiders, and only those who barely touched the threshold of elite forbearance could capture a trace. On the field, there was only the sound of clanging swords intersecting. Episode 12. The short handover once again made Ye Chen feel the difference between himself and Chimu Shuamao more intuitively. The speed of the other party was far inferior to his own, so Ye Chen could dodge the attack almost every time. But as long as he didn't dodge successfully, the indistinguishable slash on the knife and the terrifying force would make him anxious. However, he did not collapse instantly, and he was still desperately trying to create trouble for Chimu Shuamao. Every time the opponent used an old move, Ye Chen would rely on speed to give the opponent several counterattacks. It's a pity that Ye Chen's physical strength is not good. In the face of such a high-intensity battle, he is just the physique of the elite shinobi, and he simply can't support it for too long. And Chimu Shuamao also felt this, so he could only regretfully jump out of the standing circle. Let's fight here today, since I am right, we really don't distinguish between victory and defeat in terms of knife skills. When the people around heard this, no one objected anymore. How can Ye Chen say that he has also fought with Chimu Shuamao for so long without falling behind? You must know that this is the third largest combat power in Konoha, and it is famous in the entire ninja world. Ye Chen's strength suddenly rose to the level of the least elite forbearance in the hearts of everyone. Perhaps in the encounter with some shadow levels with poor physical skills, Ye Chen may also be able to fight. In this battle, Ye Chen really felt his shortcomings and was more eager to improve his strength. After all, the shadow level of the Hokage is also a look at the early stage, and when it comes to the fourth battle, the shadow level is really everywhere, and if he wants to protect himself and the woman he loves at that time, how to say it, it must be a super shadow or even a sixth level. After calming his breath, Ye Chen said to Chimu Shuamao, I have also benefited a lot from this battle, and the next time I find you to duel, I will definitely defeat you at that time. This time, Ye Chen did not address Lord Chimu Shuamao because he had already placed himself and Pu Mao on the same level. In the past, he did not have a system, so he developed the habit of humility, but now that he has the opportunity to become stronger, he naturally will not look at his face everywhere like that. Chimu Shuamao himself has a good personality, and his age is not much older than Ye Chen, so he didn't care about this little detail, but said it expectantly. I'm looking forward to that fight. At the same time, the voice of the system in Ye Chen's mind sounded again. Ding. Has been singled out with Kiki Shuashigeru, rewarded, Hawkeye's swordsmanship experience. When the battle came to an end, everyone dispersed, each carrying out their own patrol mission. Ye Chen did not delay coming directly to his jurisdiction, and he was still worried about Hawkeye's swordsmanship experience. This is the second reward he received from the system. Thinking of this, Ye Chen hurriedly opened his backpack and saw a prop with a book icon inside. Hawkeye's sword art experience. After using it, you can obtain Hawkeye's sword art experience, not directly obtain Hawkeye's sword art. Although this reward is not to make Ye Chen become Hawkeye, it is equivalent to obtaining Hawkeye's guidance. You must know that people as powerful as Solon must worship Hawkeye as a teacher, and swordsmanship is promoted like a rocket. With such a master guidance, Ye Chen can definitely take a lot less detours. Swordsmanship tips using Hokage. Ding! Using Hokage's swordsmanship is successful, and the ability is transmitted. After accepting Hokage's sword skills, Ye Chen immediately had an understanding of how to improve his sword skills next, and he also had a better positioning of his level. His current sword technique seems to be powerful, but at most it is close to Jinhao. If there is no chakra and thunder fruit bonus, it is estimated that even steel will continue to be chopped. And what is needed to break through the sword how is understanding, but with the help of this sword art experience, Ye Chen knows how to comprehend this. He believed that in a few days at most, he would be able to break through to the level of Jinhao. Jinhao's characteristic is that he cuts steel and can send out a certain degree of slashing, and if Ye Chen guessed correctly, Chimu Shuamao is also at this level. After making a decision, Ye Chen began to cultivate and continuously fought against the elite Shangnan and Shadow level, which made him feel a lot of pressure. Therefore, this time he cultivated even harder, and while developing the fruit ability, he was still practicing physical skills, and he also had to take time to practice sword techniques, which gave him almost no time to rest. Fortunately, he had long been accustomed to such non-stop cultivation, so there was no discomfort. In the past, there was no system, wasn't it like this, even thinking about cultivating when he slept? Otherwise, how can you use the qualifications of ordinary people to achieve special tolerance? And he has the existence of a heart net, so there is no need to patrol at all. As long as there is an enemy approaching, he will definitely be able to find it at the first time. The ability development of the Thunder Fruit, Ye Chen mainly concentrated on the heart net. As for other moves, as long as his physical skills improved, he would naturally be able to perform. By the time he finished his day's cultivation, it was already late at night. However, this time, Ye Chen did not feel tired yet. That's because he's figured out how to stimulate cells with lightning to boost resilience and build muscle. This made his cultivation more efficient, and the consumption of physical strength was not so serious. If it weren't for the stationed report, Ye Chen was even ready to continue cultivating. No way, go back first, and then come out in the evening to continue cultivating. If you don't go back, others will think that his side has encountered an enemy attack, and he doesn't want people to come over and see that he is not patrolling, but cultivating. However, even in a hurry, Ye Chen did not give up his cultivation, and this time he used the handstand method. Speaking of which, the task given by the 3 generations this time is to go to the border to support, and the mission time limit is half a month. This made Ye Chen more worried about whether there would be something wrong with the silence. After all, Tuan Zhang's old dog is not a thing, maybe he will kill Shizun. At that time, his spiritual time house will be gone. But at the moment, he didn't want to give up the option of dealing with the Sand Ninja Army. After all, it was a divine power, the ability to freely shuttle through various planes. Shunwei doesn't care about the bonus of movement speed, but space and plane shuttle are very important. The various bosses of the later Hokage world more or less have spatial abilities, so he must also master spatial abilities to defend himself. Right now, you can only mix at the border first. Anyway, there is a system. If the silence is really dead, the result of the option should prompt. Because it was late at night when Ye Chen returned to the station, most people had already rested, and no one saw Ye Chen's way of advancing upside down. Only Chimu Shuamao, who was responsible for registering Ye Chen, saw him so energetic, and his evaluation of Ye Chen in his heart increased by a few points. Ye Chen is not the kind of heavenly prodigy, but he can rely on his own perseverance to cultivate to this current strength, which is indeed worthy of Chimu Shuamao's affirmation. Episode 13. When Ye Chen was cultivating intensively at the border, Konoha's side was not calm either. Located in the underground route, Tuanzo was anxiously waiting for something at this moment. I can't help but be anxious, he sent to assassinate Ye Chen this time, but his powerful henchmen, the subordinates with the strength of elite Shangnan, are also rare in his hands. After all, his root organization has not been established for a long time, and the potential people under his command have not yet been cultivated. The only ones who can send a shot are 2 elites to endure, and now that one of them has not returned from the mission, he can't help but be in a hurry. What's going on? If 1 elite is forbearant and 3 is superior, can there be any mistakes? After muttering a word, Tuan Zhang's eyes as he looked at the gate gradually became gloomy. At this moment, a person suddenly walked in outside the door, and when he saw that it was not the elite shinobu he expected, Tuan Zhang was suddenly disappointed. But this person in front of him may also bring a little news? Hinata, why did you come over all of a sudden? It turned out that the person who came over at this moment was the third generation of Hokage 8 Flying Sun. Your plan failed, stop for the time being and don't deal with Ye Chen. Tuanzang, who was sitting there quite calmly, immediately stood up when he heard this. What do you say? How do you know that the plan has failed, and I haven't received a return yet? Hinata walked over to Danzo, found a place to sit down, and then sighed. Seeing that Rick Hop was playing deep here, Tuanzang was even more anxious to jump to his feet. Say something quickly, don't sigh in front of me every day and sigh fake mercy. At this time, 8 Flying Sun Chopper spoke. I just received intelligence from Chimushuamao, saying that Ye Chen has reached the border. Hearing this, Tuanzang also understood, it seemed that the mission had indeed failed, and if his plan was successful, Ye Chen would definitely not reach the border alive. But he really couldn't figure out how Ye Chen was just a special Shangnan, how he could successfully survive under the siege of the elite Shangnan and the 3 Shangnan. Is there any news from my subordinates? Hinata nodded when he heard this, and then said. Chimushuamo said that Ye Chen killed an elite upper ninja and 3 upper ninja, this should be your person. Hearing this news, Tuanzang's first reaction was disbelief. Impossible. He is just a special shinobi, how can he kill the elite Shangnan? Even if you kill Shangnan, especially Shangnan generally has a secret technique that can threaten Shangnan, but the elite Shangnan is completely different, which is the top combat power in any village. That is an existence that can fight with shadow-level powerhouses, and even some elite shinobi who have a strong blood succession limit can also threaten shadow-level powerhouses. 8 Flying Sun Chopper naturally couldn't believe that Ye Chen, who had always been despised by himself, would have such a powerful strength. As an old voyeur of Konoha, he likes to observe Konoha with a crystal ball when he has nothing to do, and naturally knows Ye Chen's growth trajectory. Although he appreciated Ye Chen's unremitting exercise in his heart, the other party's qualifications were true, so he didn't put it in his heart. Who knew that Ye Chen would suddenly jump out today to give him such a big surprise? Originally, I didn't believe it, but Chimushuamao said in the intelligence that all 4 enemies were killed in battle, and only Ye Chen was found at the scene. Tuanzang's face became even more gloomy when he heard this, and he never expected that an ant in his heart that could be pinched to death at any time actually killed his own right-hand man. 8 Flying Sun Chopper said with a distressed face. That elite Shangnan is your nephew, such a good seedling, he actually did not sacrifice his life for the country, but died in infighting. Tuanzang was originally unhappy, and he jumped even more when he heard the words of the 8 Flying Sun. I don't need you to pretend, I really feel sorry for why you didn't send your son, if I'm not mistaken, he is already an elite and endures. When Sarutobi heard this, he changed the topic. In short, Ye Chen can't move, his strength is no longer to be underestimated, if he makes a rash move, if he notices, it will inevitably give birth to the mind of defecting, a big war is about to happen, and Konoha can no longer lose high-end combat power. The awe-inspiring words of 8 Flying Sun slashing are the most disgusting point of Tuanzang. Tomorrow chopping is not a good product, and it is loaded like the real thing every time. Take this incident, the bad guys let him do it all, and now he has lost the future patriarch of the Shimura clan, and this kid is just a few high-sounding words and perfunctory. No, this Ye Chen must die, won't you forget that he is already close to Tsunade? They were originally childhood sweethearts, and they were about to become a couple. Richo's face also became gloomy when he heard this. In the end, it is the descendant of the 1,000 hands, really can't you keep it? Tuanzang continued. Tsunade is already the strength of the elite shinobi, and the prestige in the village is also very high, if you let her and Ye Chen be together, then the next Hokage is not what we can say. Hearing this, the 8 Flying Sun Chop no longer spoke, but fell into deep thought. Seeing this, Tuanzang did not speak, waiting for this day to make a choice. The current Hinata is not old and confused, he is still the same ninja who kills decisively in the Megatron ninja realm, so Danzo believes that he will make the right choice. Don't move him in a short time, the war is about to begin, Tsunade will hand it over to the mountain pepperfish, as for Ye Chen, spread the news that he may master the armor of the Thunder God to Jonin, and someone will solve him. Ye Chen may have mastered the Thunder God armor, which is also the information in Chimushuamao's intelligence, which was originally not intended to be publicized. But threatening his absolute control over Hokage, the old fox also had to make a move. As for Hanzo, it is known as the existence of a demigod in the ninja world, with the strength of the 8 Flying Sun, it is not a problem to deal with the current Tsunade, as long as the whereabouts of Tsunade are secretly revealed, Tsunade can be killed quietly. Tuanzang is a veteran of this kind of dirty work. As long as he hears the words of the 8 flying sun, he immediately knows how to carry it out. The two old partners don't look at the surface and don't deal with it. In fact, their temperaments are the same in secret. So be it, I'll go back first. After the explanation, 8 flying sun chopper no longer stayed and walked straight out of Tuanzang's office. Instead, Tuanzang thought of a problem, that is, he sent Kato to assassinate Ye Chen, and now the situation is obvious that Kato is dead. Then the girl called Shizune in his hand is worthless, and he is thinking about what to do with this girl. Coming. With an order, a person immediately appeared around Tuanzang. Take Kato's niece to the spy group. In the end, Tuanzang still did not kill Shizune. In the end, he is a seedling with good qualifications, and he looks like a water spirit, and in the future, he will be a spy to seduce high-ranking officials of other countries, and it is still no problem to set some intelligence. I'm like this, it's also a waste, right? Tuanzo thought so. Episode 14. A week passed in the blink of an eye, and Ye Chen's strength had improved a lot during this week's cultivation. Now if he is allowed to fight with Chimu Shuama again, at least in terms of strength, he will not be completely crushed. However, there were still many gaps between the two, which made Ye Chen dare not relax, and still insisted on cultivating hard every day. After becoming more familiar with the thunder fruit in terms of speed, he once again raised another level, and he was confident that his speed would definitely rank in the top 3 in the current Konoha and even the ninja world. The reason why it is not the first is because Ye Chen still does not know the speed of the 3 generations of Thunder Shadows. No matter how to say that this 3-generation Thunder Shadow is also the one who carries forward the Thunder God armor, the speed is definitely not to be underestimated. He has improved a lot these days, but also the range of the heart net, this move itself has improved rapidly, and the strength of Analu's half-hanger can directly monitor the entire empty island more than 10 kilometers away. And Ye Chen's talent in this area is not bad, and he is now able to monitor the range of 2 kilometers. This range is no worse than the white eyes of the perception artifact. These days, he has not received a prompt from the system, so he understands that at least Muzun is not dead, then his spiritual timehouse will still have a chance to get. It's just that he can't figure it out, since Kato is dead, what is that Danzo still keeping a little girl who is only 2 years old for? Then Ye Chen thought that the original Rikato seemed to have died early, but there was no problem with Mute, but he was taken away by Tsunade. It seems that the fate of Shizune should be the same as the original, and it is estimated that there will be no danger to life. In addition to the silent situation, Ye Chen did not forget to patrol, and there was a heart net that he had been paying attention to, whether there were shinobi's troops around. This option is related to Shinwei, so he is still more attentive. He had already made up his mind that if he had not encountered an enemy in the last 3 days, he would take the initiative to look for it, and he had to master Shinwei anyway. It was precisely what he was thinking about, and he was about to start today's cultivation. Ye Chen found an abnormality in his heart network. Below the ground, several heartbeat sounds appeared, which was obviously someone using the earth to move through the depths of the earth. These people are not simple, the depth of the underground is about 400 meters, which is almost a blind spot for most sentient ninjas. Moreover, if he had reached such a depth, if he was not extremely accomplished in Todo, he would have been crushed to death by the terrifying pressure around him. It shows that this unit is specially screened. It seems that his goal has appeared. In the border of this country of winds, he is still so good at earth escape, 9 times out of 10, this is the army of Sand Shinobu. They were unlucky when they met Ye Chen, but Ye Chen's heart network had no blind spot, even if it was 2 kilometers underground, he could perceive it clearly. Deep underground, several ninjas wearing sand ninja foreheads were moving forward with bated breath at this moment. Their goal this time is to explore the patrol route of the Konoha border, as well as the entire logistics transportation route of the border troops. This was extremely important for the rest of the war, so they were specially selected, and each one was a ninja who specialized in the earth. In order to achieve the purpose of secret infiltration, for this operation, the entire Cheyenne village attaches great importance to it, so they dare not make any mistakes, each one is extremely careful, and no one talks, so as not to show any horse's feet. This time the march was also smooth, according to the map they remembered, they should have crossed the borderline by now and reached the territory of the Fire Nation. Suddenly, a rather large blue pillar of light fell from the sky. The lightning-like pillar instantly turned the soil into a liquid-like magma, and then attacked downward without abating. This pillar of light actually went hundreds of meters underground. Fortunately, the sound of lightning was quite loud, and the group of sand ninja heard the movement and hurriedly dodged. They move very slowly underground, so if you want to avoid this pillar of light, you must leave the underground, otherwise the fate that awaits them is death. Above the ground, a group of shinobu finally jumped out in order to dodge. By this moment they already understood that they were exposed. In front of them, there was a man who looked 17 or 18 years old, with black hair and a short knife pinned to his waist. Ye Chen saw the 5 people in front of him, and thought that these people still had a little brain, and knew to escape to the ground. Otherwise, under his previous move, they would definitely die. This is the divine punishment that Analu once used, because there is no need for any plastic practice, so Ye Chen also mastered it. The 5 sand ninja in front of him are not weak, and there is actually a shadow-level powerhouse. That amount of chakra that is comparable to Chimu Shuamao, Ye Chen will definitely not admit it. The chakra of the other 4 is also at the level of upper patience. Since the enemy appeared, Ye Chen had no plans to reminisce about the past, and the 2 countries were now enemies, not the alliances later. The 5 people of Shinobu are also people with rich combat experience, and they immediately put up a formation after knowing that they were exposed. The 4 upper ninja stepped forward directly, and the shadow-level powerhouse retreated to the rear, faintly meaning to be protected. Then this shadow-level sand ninja took out 10 scrolls, opened them and sealed them with both hands, and then slapped them on the scrolls. The next moment, 10 puppets made of wood appeared, dressed in white coats, each holding a different weapon. As soon as Ye Chen saw this scene, as well as the red hair of the shadow-level sand ninja, he immediately thought of the puppet master Red Sand Scorpion who later became famous in the ninja world. Could it be the father of the scorpion? Thinking about it this way, Ye Chen found that the appearance of this shadow-level sand ninja was indeed a little similar to that of a scorpion. Searching the memory in his mind, Ye Chen knew the identity of the person in front of him. Wenzo Shiro, the son of the current Sand Shinobi elder Wenzo Chio, and the new generation genius of the entire Sand Shinobi, sits on the border and fights with Kiki Shuamao many times, and has not yet fallen behind. Unexpectedly, he also encountered a big fish. This Wenzo Shiro is the boss of the Sand Ninja Border Force. If he is killed, Ye Chen's status in the entire Konoha will rise. Knowing the identity of the enemy, Ye Chen did not have any fear, but could take this opportunity to try the results of his cultivation. One Zwoosher Lang over there, after sensing that Ye Chen's chakra only had a particularly superior level, inevitably despised the enemy. But he is a veteran of the battlefield, knowing that he is deep in the enemy's hinterland. Even if the opponent's strength is not good, he must go all out to fight a quick victory, otherwise he will definitely die if he is besieged. Do it. As he drank, the 4 upper shinobi took the lead in making a seal. And when Zwoshiro manipulated him to imitate his mother's proud work, and the 1,000 hands and 10 people created killed Ye Chen, buying time for his teammates to make a seal. Episode 15. Facing an opponent who fought back and forth with Chimu Shuamao, Ye Chen did not dare to raise it. Moreover, the other party still has 4 helpers, and it is a disadvantage no matter how you look at it. So he immediately launched a signal flare. This time is different from the last attack. He can call for support, so there is no need for a person to commit a dangerous situation. Now as long as he dragged the enemy steadily, when Chimu Shuamao arrived, Ye Chen and Chimu Shuamao joined forces to take this force. As soon as he released the signal flare, one Zwashiro's puppet came in front of him. This time the attack was a total of 6 puppets, and it seemed that Wenzo Shiro really had rich combat experience and knew to keep a few puppets to protect his body. Ye Chen found that all of these puppets' clothes had the family emblem of the Thousand Hands clan. If he guessed correctly, these 10 puppets were probably all made of the corpses of the Thousand Hand clan. The current Thousand Hands clan has long been close to extinction, and he can actually get so many corpses, so that Ye Chen can't help but guess, this kid won't collude with Tuan Zeng, right? Of the 6 attacking puppets, 3 are armed with blades, and you can tell at a glance that they are melee puppets, and the weapons are also coated with purple venom, thinking that as long as they are touched, they will definitely die. Fortunately, Ye Chen's speed was amazing, and he avoided them all in a flash. And the attack of the 3 puppets fell to the ground, which immediately caused the aftermath of the ground shaking, and even the ground was completely shattered. This is the strange power of the Thousand Hands clan. Ye Chen grew up with Tsunade, and he knew more about strange powers, so he recognized it at a glance. While Ye Chen was surprised, the other three puppets also attacked. The three of them stood together, rested their heads all together to form a glyph, and then opened their mouths and performed ninjutsu directly without being sealed. The next moment, thunder, wind, fire, and the combination of the three attributes combined with ninjutsu attacked. Ye Chen estimated that this move was also S level, and it was a powerful ninjutsu that could threaten the shadow level. And because of the addition of thunder and wind attribute changes, the speed of the attack is extremely amazing, and it looks like a light blue laser cannon from a distance. Ye Chen had suffered losses in Shimushuomao before, and he knew that his elementalization could not diffuse an attack with a change in the nature of the thunder attribute. Therefore, he did not dare to use his body to hard connect, and could only choose to dodge. Boom! A terrifying laser flew past Ye Chen's ear and hit a small mountain bag behind him. The mountain bag that was about 20 meters high directly turned into nothing in an instant. At this point, Wen Zhuoshilong's strength has been undoubtedly revealed, and this move alone has absolute shadow level strength. Although his information is written about elite upper patients, if he is allowed to be a wind shadow, it is definitely more than enough. Where the Konoha border station was, as early as when the signal flares were sent, people had already been sent over. Because he knew that it was Ye Chen's jurisdiction that was in trouble, Shimushuomao was the first to rush over. He can be regarded as a person who understands Ye Chen's strength. If even Ye Chen wants to ask for support, then 9 times out of 10, he will meet Wen Zhuoshilong. You must resist it, Ye Chen. After saying this, Shimushuomao's speed increased a little again. Not to be outdone, Ye Chen's side was not to be outdone, directly covered his body with lightning, and then pulled out the short knife on his waist. This move Ye Chen named Thor mode, is a move that turns part of his body into lightning and greatly increases his speed and strength at one time. Seeing Ye Chen's state, Wen Zhuoshilong's heart couldn't help but tighten. He had naturally seen this move, and subconsciously thought of Thunder Shadow's Thunder God armor. You must know that the Thor armor is a move with high attack power and speed as fast as lightning, but it is extremely restrained to their puppeteers. The speed at which Ye Chen dodged the attack earlier had already surprised Wen Zhuoshilong extremely much, and he even wondered if Ye Chen was particularly tolerant. Now that Ye Chen used this move similar to Thunder God's armor, he had a faint sense of foreboding. Wen Zhuoshilong, who just wanted to make a move, saw that Ye Chen had disappeared again. Immediately after that, a Shangnin next to him had already landed on the ground. Episode 16. Ye Chen's plan was naturally to solve the trash fish first, and Shangren was simply an ant that could be crushed to death as easily as an ant now. Wen Zhuoshiro also sensed Ye Chen's intentions at this time, but it was a pity that a puppeteer like him really had nothing to do in the face of a speed-type ninja. What's more, now Ye Chen's speed is much faster, and Wen Zhuoshilong himself may not be able to take care of it, let alone help his teammates. However, he will not give up trying, and hurriedly controls the 3 major ninjutsu puppets and continues to emit the combined light waves of the 3 attributes. And the other 3 melee puppets are waiting next to Shangnin on their side. As long as Ye Chen appears, then he will even attack his teammates together, saying anything to cause some damage to Ye Chen. Wen Zhuoshiro's response really worked, and when Ye Chen flashed in front of another Shangnin's eyes, he who was about to attack was immediately caught in the attack of the ninjutsu puppet and the melee puppet. If he continues to attack, he will definitely be attacked from both sides, and even if there is elementalization, I am afraid that he will not be able to resist. As for taking the initiative to attack Wen Zhuoshilong, the chances are even slim. There were 4 puppets guarding around him, and Ye Chen hadn't seen these 4 puppets make a move, so he didn't even know what his ability was, and it was very risky to make a rash move. In the end, it is Wen Zhuoshilong's strong inside ability, otherwise Ye Chen's current speed, I am afraid that few can really capture it. As a puppeteer, his physical skills are poor, and there is no ninjutsu. If even his inside is rubbish, it is estimated that Wen Zhuoshiro will not break into the famous name. Fortunately, Ye Chen is not only a physical skill. The next moment, he opened the distance between him and the remaining 4 shinobi, and raised his right hand to the sky. Then Ye Chen said indifferently, "Divine punishment." As the words fell, 4 lightning bolts flew out of Ye Chen's hand in a row and reached the sky. Looking at Ye Chen's inexplicable move, several of the upper shinobi of the Sand Ninja were a little overwhelmed. Could it be that Ye Chen was emptying the ninjutsu? Only Wen Zhuoshilong noticed that Ye Chen's thunder did not seem to have made any seals. Raising his head and looking at the sky, the 4 lightning bolts stopped rising in a blink of an eye and began to expand rapidly. It's that trick just now. Seeing this, Wen Zhuoshirlang also understood that this was Ye Chen's move to sneak attack them at the beginning. Thinking of this, he hurriedly dodged with 4 puppets. His reaction was fast enough, and several Shangnan were not far behind, and hurriedly flashed to the side, and even the other puppets guarding them temporarily dodged. Seeing this scene, Ye Chen smiled. Hit the plan. The next moment, 4 consecutive explosions sounded, and 4 divine punishments suddenly blasted out 4 bottomless pits on the ground. However, the weakness of this move is that the speed is not fast. In the One Piece world, even the Straw Hat group that has just come out of the East China Sea can be avoided by everyone. Not to mention that several of Ye Chen's enemies are at the level of the least forbearance. But when they were ready to be happy for the rest of their lives. Knock knock. The sound of 3 consecutive heavy objects hitting the ground sounded. Take a closer look. The 3 upper ninja of this sand ninja force actually fell to the ground at the same time as they were dodging the divine punishment. When the dazzling electric light of the divine punishment disappeared, only Ye Chen and Wen Zhuoshirlang were left alive under the field. Seeing all his teammates killed, Wen Zhuoshiro's face did not panic at all. Who the hell are you? I've never heard of Konoha having someone like you. Is it to snipe my secret weapon? Wen Zhuoshirlang thought that this operation was extremely secretive, but he was still caught by Ye Chen, and he could only think about the internal traitor on his side. He really didn't believe that anyone could sense a distance of hundreds of meters underground. And Ye Chen's strength is so terrifying, it has already posed a threat to him at the shadow level, and he can't help but think so. Ye Chen had just used 4 divine punishments at this time, and he had opened the speed to 3 Shangnan, and just wanted to breathe. After all, the shadow level and Shangnan are not the same, and he must respond to the enemy in the best condition. So he did not refuse to answer. My name is Ye Chen, remember this name. In the future, your epitaph will be written and die at the hands of Ye Chen. Episode 17. Hearing Ye Chen's arrogant words, Wen Zhuoshirlang was not angry, because he knew that if he made a slight mistake, he really could die in the hands of this lightning-fast man. You are similar to the White Fang, but you are faster than him, and I have only seen one person faster than you in the entire ninja world. Ye Chen suddenly became interested when he heard this. Are you talking about the 3rd generation of Thunder Shadow? Wen Zhuoshiro nodded. That's right. Although you are already fast, the speed of the 3 generations of Thunder Shadow is that I have almost no chance to react, and I can only be passively beaten in the face of him. Ye Chen nodded and did not question anything. After all, the 3 generations of Thunder Shadow are known as the strongest Thunder Shadow in all generations, and one person is even more alone in 10,000 people, which is probably the most amazing achievement in the entire ninja world before Uchiha made a single attack on the Ninja Alliance. The monster between the 1,000-hand pillars has to be said separately. After all, he is not a human, but the god of the ninja world. Even if I am inferior to him, I still can't change the end of your mortal death today. You should know that Chi Mu Shuamao is already on the way here. Wen Zhuoshirlang naturally knew this, and the reason why he chatted with Ye Chen was not to provide the other party with an opportunity to delay time, but he also had his own countermeasures. Suddenly, Wen Zhuoshiro clasped his hands together, and then all his 1,000 hands and 10 people gathered around him, completely protecting him in the center. Then a puppet all opened its mouth. Secret technique, 10,000 wind kill. As his words fell, the 10 puppets simultaneously spewed out several meters-long wind blades, which centered on Wen Zhuoshiro, thinking about the indiscriminate attacks around them. If ordinary people only think that Wen Zhuoshiro is wasting chakra, such an attack cannot be fought at all. But Ye Chen found that this move just restrained him. The all-round attack without dead ends gave him no chance to get close to Wen Zhuoshirlang, and because of the wind thunder, Ye Chen definitely couldn't be hit by the wind blade rashly. As for the strength of these wind blades, there is no need to question this. This is a wind blade used by a 1,000 Hands clan, definitely stronger than any family that is good at ninjutsu. In the blink of an eye, the number of wind blades reached thousands, and finally tens of thousands, and Wen Zhuoshiro's puppets actually did not stop, as if there were infinite chakras. Ye Chen didn't dare to be stunned at this time, and hurriedly turned his speed to dodge. With a swoosh, Ye Chen had just avoided, and in the next moment where he was, there was already a wind blade slashing through, and even the rocks were cut flat where he passed. And such a wind blade, there are tens of thousands of ways. This is Wen Zhuoshiro's countermeasure. Relying on the characteristics of the 1,000-hand puppet province chakra, he can squander it so much. However, in this case, even if he kills Ye Chen, I am afraid that he will not be able to return to the land of wind safely. But he didn't care, because if he could kill Ye Chen, a monster with terrifying qualifications, it would also be a happy event for the Wind Country. Ye Chen had the intention to escape the shrouded range of this move, but after taking a closer look, he found that the flight distance of these wind blades was extremely terrifying, and they had not completely dissipated after flying a kilometer from a distance. This made him realize more clearly that every wind blade in this is not a joke. Now he was not in the mood to think of anything else, running his heart net to the extreme, desperately predicting the direction of each wind blade's attack, and then relying on his own speed to dodge. In this way, one Zhuoshi Lang and Ye Chen, one desperately consumed chakra, and the other kept holding his head. Episode 18. It lasted for an unknown amount of time before Wenzo Shiro, who was surrounded by puppets, stopped continuing to use the wind blade. Looking closely, there was no intact tree in the place where the two of them fought, and the rocks in the distance were all chopped, and none of them were complete. And such a mess, but covering a radius of 1 kilometer. This is the power of a shadow-level powerhouse. Even if it is a puppeteer who did not officially appear in the original work, it is still so terrifying destructive under the full explosion. Wan Zhuoshi Lang, who was panting, focused his gaze into the distance and saw Ye Chen's figure. Now Ye Chen can be described as the worst day since crossing. His clothes are already tattered, and there are countless scratches on them. And he was bleeding constantly, and he couldn't count how many times he had been hit, but fortunately there was no fatal wound anywhere. At first, when the wind blade was not dense, he could barely dodge without injury, but the more he went to the back without injury, the more difficult it was, and he could only let himself be injured but not hurt the point. Even if he had been widening the distance between him and Wan Zhuoshi, he still couldn't completely avoid it, because he found that some of these wind blades would actually turn around and kill a horse gun. And the most serious injury on Ye Chen's body is probably the left hand. A deep bone scar runs through his left hand. If it weren't for the fact that he finally forcibly twisted in the air against the moon step, I'm afraid that the left hand would have been cut off. Suddenly, Ye Chen, who had reached the limit, suddenly raised his right hand and pointed his finger at Wan Zhuoshi Lang. Mjolnir's gun. With a drink, a finger-thick lightning bolt flew out from the index finger of Ye Chen's right hand, and the speed was simply terrifying, faster than Ye Chen's own Thunder God mode speed. The exhausted Wan Zhuoshi Lang saw Ye Chen raise his hand, and immediately attracted a puppet to block it, but unfortunately everything was too slow. The blue light flashed, and Wan Zhuoshi's forehead already had an extra hole the thickness of a finger. This Thunder God gun is the fastest among all Ye Chen's moves, but it is also very powerful because of this, and the most it can do is to kill an unsuspecting puppeteer. If Ye Chen used it before, he would definitely block it by the puppets around Wan Zhuoshi Lang, that is, when the other party was exhausted in the end, this move would be able to kill the enemy. As for Wan Zhuoshi Lang's move of Wancheng Feng Kill, it really refreshed Ye Chen's understanding of ninjutsu, and it turned out that ninjutsu could still be used to this extent. However, he guessed that this move would also restrain him, and if he was replaced by a shadow-level ninja who specialized in ninjutsu, as long as he used a wide range of fire to bombard, he could also block it 9 times out of 10 by relying on attribute restraint. Ye Chen also wondered, how did Chimu Shuamao in the original book kill this monster? This is a real shadow level, and the strength is not moist at all. Could it be that Chimu Shuamao made another breakthrough in speed in World War II, so he killed Wenzo Shiro by sneak attack? Anyway, now Ye Chen is helping Chimu Shuamao to block a disaster and kill Wan Zhuoshi. Chio's old woman will definitely not let herself go. Ye Chen's doubts could not be answered, because he already felt that his consciousness was draining, and the moment he killed Wan Zhuoshi Lang, he was already lying on the ground, unable to move even a little. He could only pray that Chimu Shuamao could arrive quickly, otherwise he would lose too much blood and die, which was definitely the most humiliating way for the Traverser to die. Fortunately, his prayer seemed to have an effect, and the next moment Chimu Shuamao's figure appeared at the battle site. Chimu Shuamao, who rushed here, saw Wan Zhuoshi Lang in the distance for the first time, and this moment directly made him solemn. This is his old opponent. The two sides have fought many times without winning or losing, but I didn't expect Ye Chen to meet such a guy. But after taking a closer look, he found that Wan Zhuoshi Lang's forehead was empty, and the other party had lost his breath. Just as he was shocked by Wan Zhuoshi Lang's death, Ye Chen's almost inaudible voice sounded. Send. Back to Konoha. Tsunade can save me. After saying that, Ye Chen was completely unconscious, and it was only at this time that Chimu Shuamao saw Ye Chen lying in the distance. Seeing the blood all around Ye Chen at this moment, as well as the miserable state of a scarred body, he immediately understood that although Ye Chen had defeated Wenzwusher Lang, he had already reached the point of dying. Fortunately, although he is not a medical ninja, he is a person who licks blood at the knife edge all year round, and immediately gave Ye Chen emergency treatment, and in a blink of an eye, he helped Ye Chen stop the bleeding. But Ye Chen's terrifying injury on his left hand was not something he could treat, and this had to be treated by a medical ninja in a short period of time. Fortunately, as the leader of the border troops, he still had the authority to let Ye Chen return to Konoha in advance. Episode 19. This time escorting Ye Chen back to Konoha, Chimu Shuamao personally escorted him back at the risk of being sneak attacked. After all, Ye Chen's injury cannot be delayed, otherwise even if it is cured, it may leave sequelae, and at that time, for a ninjutsu ninja like Ye Chen, it will greatly reduce the combat effectiveness. But border security is less important. Because Ye Chen killed the captain of the shinobi, Wenzwushiro, even if the Sand Shinobu High Level was angry because of Wenzwushiro's death, he didn't have the guts to harass in a short time. Even if it is an old woman Chio who has always annoyed him a little, it is estimated that there is no way to directly bring people to attack Konoha despite the opposition of the high level. However, it was sooner or later for Shinobu to attack Konoha, so after he sent Ye Chen back, he couldn't delay too much, and he had to rush back to the front line immediately. This battle is likely to become an opportunity for Konoha and Shinobu to go to war. At this time, Chimu Shuamao didn't know whether to thank Ye Chen for solving a big trouble for him, or should he complain. Ye Chen stabbed himself in a hornet's nest. Chimu Shuamao's speed was very fast, even with a Ye Chen, it only took a few hours to see the gate of Konoha village. When he rushed back to the village, the news of his return had actually been sent back to the village by the messenger eagle. In Hokage's office, about Ye Chen's news, Tuanzo was arguing with Sarutobi Hinata. Can't hesitate, just kill Ye Chen directly now. Ape Fairy Chopper is very entangled at the moment, he is not reluctant to kill Ye Chen, he is just thinking about whether killing now will cause public anger. It's really Ye Chen's performance is too amazing, that is Wenzwusher Lang, even if he fights with the ape flying sun who has been famous for many years, Wenzwushiro can do it without showing flaws. Now he was actually killed by Ye Chen. If this news spreads outside, I am afraid that the entire village will worship Ye Chen as a hero. You must know that even the Konoha White Fang, Chimu Shuamao, who he has been holding all along, has not been able to kill Wenzoshiro. But Ye Chen has achieved this feat. You must know that Chimu Shuamao has now become the captain of the border troops, and also holds the duties of the deputy captain of the Dark Department. This is the status of the whole Konoha above 10,000 people under one person. Ye Chen did what Chimu Shuamao couldn't do, and if Rikho didn't give a reasonable reward, I'm afraid it would be difficult to convince the public. Thinking of this ape flying Sunchop said. I don't know that now is the best opportunity, but I can't be angry. Tuan Zhang slapped the table and said angrily. When do you have to hesitate, miss this opportunity, and don't know if you can kill this kid in the future? Now Tuan Zhang already doubted the feasibility of the two of them planning before to let Yunin kill Ye Chen. After all, Ye Chen killed a shadow-level powerhouse. He has lived in hiding for decades, and in the end, he is just a shadow level. And such a monster like Ye Chen, now actually seriously injured and unconscious, even a child on the side of the road can take his life. Tuan Zhang doesn't know what hesitation the three generations have to do. The third generation knew that Tuanzo was only carried away by the victory in front of him, and then reminded coldly. Don't forget that Konoha is not completely decided by the two of us. Hearing this, Tuan Zhang completely calmed down. Although the two of them have the power in Konoha, there are still a large number of families in Konoha, and at this moment, Konoha village has only been established for more than 20 years, and the various families have not completely returned to their hearts. If nothing else, Hinata and Uchiha alone are making the two of them feel like pins and needles. If the two of them kill Ye Chen rashly this time, it will inevitably make these families notice the abnormality. Once the families know that the two want to monopolize the Hokage, when the time comes, if the group besieges, the two of them will not be able to eat and go. Seeing that Tuanzo finally calmed down, the three generations continued. Besides, now that Ye Chen has been handed over to Tsunade, do you have the patience to kill Ye Chen in front of Tsunade's eyes? When Tuan Zhang heard this, he suddenly lost his temper. Although this woman Tsunade is only 18 years old, her strength is elite in ninja, and because she has the bloodline of the Senju clan, her combat effectiveness can even fight with the shadow level. That is to say, if he wants to kill the current Ye Chen, unless Tuan Zhang makes his own move, no one under him can handle it. In the dark, he was used to stealing chickens and dogs, and now let him kill people himself, but he didn't have any confidence at all, so he didn't insist on killing Ye Chen. The third generation said with a sigh. You go down first, I have to come up with a reasonable reward for this Ye Chen's merit. Thinking that he wanted to reward a possible future enemy, the three generations felt a headache, and they didn't have the heart to fight with Tuanzang. At this time, Tuanzang also left. Interestingly, he was not interested in participating in this kind of thing. Episode 20. Ye Chen was immediately sent to Konoha's hospital and treated by Tsunade himself. Fortunately, although his injury was serious, Tsunade was the first person in the ninja world to heal ninjutsu in the future, and this injury was still captured. The only difficulty may be that his lover has suffered such a serious injury, which will inevitably affect Tsunade's treatment. Fortunately, she is not now hemophobic, so after the initial distress, she hurriedly began to treat. The scars on Ye Chen's body were all fine, and none of them were fatal. However, his left hand is more serious, and his arm is almost cut off, and if there is a slight problem with the treatment, it may affect future actions. This forced Tsunade to spend more time trying to get the best out of his treatment. By the time Ye Chen regained consciousness again, it had been 3 days later. In the past 3 days, the news that he had killed Wenzashiro alone caused an uproar in the entire ninja world. This news had a great impact, and Konoha could not completely cover it up, so it directly announced the entire ninja world, on the one hand, in order to show off Konoha's military strength to the ninja world. On the other hand, it didn't mean to put Ye Chen up. At such a juncture when a war is about to break out, suddenly let the entire ninja world know that Konoha has a genius, so isn't this genius necessarily targeted by the entire ninja world? Among them, the most intense reflection is probably the Shine village in the Land of Winds. It is said that on the day of Bunzo Shiro's death, the old woman Chiyo ignored the opposition of the high level and directly took several people to the border. If it weren't for Chi Mushua Shigeru's timely return to defense, I am afraid that Konoha's border troops would have been completely destroyed at that time. However, although Kiki Shuamao drove Chiyo away in time, the old woman was also considered to have snatched her son's body from the border troops. After all, the time from Ye Chen killing Wenzo Shiro to this old woman's attack was too short, and the people of Konoha did not have time to transport the body of this shadow-level powerhouse back to the village. But even after snatching back his son's body, Chiyo also released cruel words. As long as she lives for 1 day, Tsunade will always be with Konoha. He also said that he would let Ye Chen pay in blood. But she said this in other words, and no one in the top of the other villages took it seriously. After all, Ye Chen had killed a shadow-level powerhouse, and now he was regarded as an S-class wanted target by other existences. A master of this strength, where he says kill, kill. Along with the news that Ye Chen had killed Wenzo Shiro, there was also his Thor mode and lightning speed. This news leaked very inexplicably, because Ye Chen's ability should have become a top secret in Konoha. If it was an uninformed person, he would only think that there were spies from other villages who saw the battle, so that he could know Ye Chen's ability. But as the first to rush to the battlefield, Chimu Shuamao questioned the inside of the village at this moment. He could be sure that there were no spies from other countries present at that time, so this news still leaked out, indicating that there were inner ghosts inside Konoha. At this moment, Chimu Shuamao, who was guarding the border, looked at the intelligence in his hand, put aside the suspicion of the village first, and muttered in his mouth. Konoha's Blue Lightning is a very figurative title. The current Ye Chen has a name that belongs to him, similar to Konoha White Fanned Banner Mushua Shigeru, and the future 3 shinobi, he is now Konoha's Blue Lightning Ye Chen. He probably never imagined that one day he would get the title one step ahead of Tsunade. Ye Chen, who had just woken up, saw Tsunade guarding beside him, and now Tsunade had the posture of a strong woman in the past, and she looked like a little daughter-in-law at home. It's just that after seeing Ye Chen wake up, Tsunade's face changed for the first time. Didn't you say you wouldn't have an accident? Now that it's like this, do you want to rush me to death? Ye Chen looked at her angry appearance, but it had a special flavor, and the murder weapon was even more shaky. Isn't this coming back? I'll just say, with you and my injury, it will definitely be fine. Tsunade suddenly couldn't hold back when he heard this, although he still blamed Ye Chen for being too careless, but he still said with distress in his mouth. I'm sorry to say, if it wasn't for Shuamao sending it back in time, your left hand might have been wasted. Ye Chen took Tsunade's hand and said with an affectionate expression. Hard work for you, I won't worry you anymore. Although Ye Chen was comforting Tsunade, he also knew that his strength had greatly increased this time, and he already had shadow-level strength. In the future, the entire ninja world was thinking that it would be difficult for someone to say that he was injured like this. If he really wanted to evaluate the strength of one's Washiro, it was definitely the top level of the ninja world today, and it might be very close to the peak of the shadow level. After all, his proud puppet, but the corpses of the 10,000 Hands clan, whether it is physical ninjutsu or defense, are top-notch, except that the body is not transformed like a scorpion, and other aspects can almost be said to be the peak of the puppeteer.